If you've been lying awake at night asking yourself whether you should walk away, then something inside you already knows the answer. Because men don't end up broken by the actual breakup. They end up broken by the months or years they spent ignoring the voice in their chest that kept saying, "This isn't right anymore." In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the 5 unmistakable signs that it's time to let her go. Not because you stopped caring, not because you failed, but because staying would cost you something you can't afford to lose: yourself. And here's what most men don't realize until it's too late. These signs don't show up overnight. They creep in slowly, disguised as bad days, rough patches, and temporary struggles. But when you look back, you'll see they were there all along, waiting for you to have the courage to face them. Stay with me, because the final sign is the one that destroys good men from the inside out. And most don't even realize it's happening until the damage is already done. Let's begin. Sign 1: your peace became the price of the relationship. At the beginning, everything felt natural. Conversations flowed, silence felt comfortable. Being together didn't require constant effort or emotional gymnastics, but somewhere along the way, something shifted. Now, every interaction feels like you're walking through a minefield. You think twice before you speak. You rehearse simple conversations in your head, trying to predict how she'll react. You calculate your words like you're defusing a bomb, not talking to someone you love. And the worst part, you can't even remember when it started. You just know that your chest tightens when her name pops up on your phone. You feel exhausted after spending time together, not refreshed. You need hours of silence after every conversation just to recover your energy. This is not what love is supposed to feel like. Because here's the truth most men don't want to admit. When being with someone consistently drains you more than it fills you, that's not a rough patch. That's the relationship telling you it's no longer built on a healthy foundation. You might tell yourself, all relationships take work. And yes, they do. But there's a difference between working together to build something beautiful and working alone just to keep something broken from completely falling apart. Real partnership doesn't steal your peace, it protects it. A woman who truly values you doesn't make you feel like you have to shrink yourself just to avoid conflict. She doesn't turn every disagreement into World War II. She doesn't punish you with silence, coldness, or emotional distance every time you don't read her mind perfectly. But here's where most men make the critical mistake. They start accepting anxiety as the new normal. They tell themselves, maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe this is just what mature relationships look like. No, what you're experiencing is not maturity, it's survival mode. And when you're in survival mode with someone who's supposed to be your safe place, you need to ask yourself a hard question. Why am I fighting so hard to stay in something that clearly doesn't want me to be at peace? Because if your peace is always the sacrifice, then the relationship isn't giving you love. It's taking your life force. And that's exactly why the next sign matters so much, because it reveals something even deeper about what's really happening. Sign 2: you're carrying the relationship alone. This one sneaks up on you because it doesn't announce itself. It just quietly becomes your reality. You're the one who initiates the conversations. You're the one who plans the dates. You're the one who tries to fix things when the mood shifts. You're the one who apologizes first, even when you're not sure what you did wrong. You're the one constantly adjusting, adapting, and accommodating. And she just exists in the relationship. She shows up when it's convenient. She engages when she feels like it. She gives effort when it benefits her. And here's the painful part. The relationship only feels alive when you're pouring everything you have into keeping it that way. So, you start telling yourself stories to make it okay. She's just going through something. She's stressed, she needs space, she'll come around, but weeks turn into months, months turn into seasons, and nothing changes. Because the truth you're avoiding is this: if your effort is the only thing holding this together, then what you have isn't a relationship. It's a one-person show and the audience isn't even watching. Think about it. When was the last time she surprised you with genuine affection? When was the last time she went out of her way to make you feel valued, appreciated, or loved? When was the last time she showed up for you emotionally the way you constantly show up for her? If you're struggling to remember, that's your answer. Because real love is reciprocal. It flows both ways. It doesn't require one person to constantly be the giver while the other just takes and takes until there's nothing left. But here's what happens to men in this situation. They start confusing their struggle with their loyalty. They think, if I just keep showing up, if I just keep trying harder, eventually she'll see my worth. But that's not how value works. When someone truly values you, they don't watch you carry the weight alone and say nothing. They don't sit back and let you exhaust yourself trying to save something they won't even fight for. They meet you halfway. They match your energy. They reciprocate your effort. And if they don't, it's not because you're not doing enough. It's because they've already decided you're not worth doing more for. I know that's hard to hear, but you need to hear it. Because the longer you stay in a one-sided relationship, the more you teach yourself a dangerous lie that your love is only valuable when you're struggling to prove it. And that's why the next sign is so destructive, because it doesn't just affect the relationship, it rewires how you see yourself. Sign 3, she dismisses your feelings and makes you question your reality. This is the sign that turns strong, confident men into anxious, second-guessing versions of themselves. You bring something up, something legitimate, something that hurt you or made you uncomfortable, and instead of her listening, acknowledging, or even just having a conversation about it, she does something else. She deflects, she minimizes, she twists it. You say, "That hurt me." She says, "You're overreacting." You say, "I don't like how you spoke to me." She says, "You're too sensitive." You say, "Why did you do that?" She says, "You're being insecure." And suddenly, the conversation that was supposed to be about your feelings becomes about everything that's supposedly wrong with you for even having those feelings. And here's the really dangerous part. After enough of these interactions, you start to believe her. You start questioning yourself. You start thinking, maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am overthinking. Maybe the problem really is me. But let me tell you something clearly. A person who loves you doesn't gaslight you into silence. A person who loves you doesn't make you feel crazy for having emotions. A person who loves you doesn't weaponize your vulnerabilities against you every time you try to communicate something real. Because what she's doing isn't accidental, it's strategic. When someone refuses to take accountability for how they make you feel, they have to do one thing first. They have to make you doubt your own perception of reality. Because if you can't trust your own feelings, you won't challenge their behavior. And if you won't challenge their behavior, they can do whatever they want without consequence. This is how emotional manipulation works. It doesn't start loud, it starts small. A little dismissal here, a little blame shifting there, and before you know it, you're walking on eggshells in your own relationship, terrified to bring up anything real because you know it'll somehow end up being your fault. And the saddest part? You start adapting. You start choosing your words like you're in court, presenting evidence for why your feelings are valid. You start bringing receipts. You start recording conversations in your head just to make sure you're not going crazy. That's not communication. That's survival. And no man should have to survive the person who's supposed to love him. So, here's the test you need to run. After a serious conversation with her, do you feel closer and clearer? Or do you feel more confused, guilty, and smaller than you did before? Because if it's always the second one, you're not in a healthy relationship. You're in a psychological trap. And the longer you stay in it, the more it damages your ability to trust yourself. And when a man can't trust himself, he becomes easy to control, easy to manipulate, and impossible to respect. That's why this next sign is critical, because it reveals whether you're actually allowed to have needs in this relationship or if you're just expected to provide and stay silent. Sign 4. Every time you express a need, you're punished for it. This is where the relationship stops feeling like partnership and starts feeling like imprisonment. You're not asking for anything unreasonable. You're not demanding perfection. You're asking for basic things that any healthy relationship should have: honesty, consistency, respect, emotional availability. But every single time you bring up a need, there's a cost. You ask for more communication. She goes silent for days. You ask for affection. She pulls away and says, "You're needy." You ask for clarity about where the relationship is going. She accuses you of pressuring her. You ask her to stop doing something that disrespects you. She says you're controlling. And after enough of this, you learn a dangerous lesson. Speaking up cost me peace. So you stop speaking up. You start swallowing things you should say. You start ignoring red flags you should address. You start pretending everything is fine when your gut is screaming that it's not. And you justify it. You call it picking your battles. You call it being mature. You call it not sweating the small stuff. But what you're really doing is slowly erasing yourself to keep someone else comfortable. Because in a healthy relationship, expressing a need doesn't lead to punishment. It leads to conversation. It leads to understanding. It leads to two people working together to meet each other halfway. But in a toxic relationship, your needs are treated like inconveniences, like burdens, like problems that she shouldn't have to deal with. And the message becomes clear. If you want peace, stay quiet. If you want affection, don't ask for too much. If you want respect, don't challenge me. That's not love. That's conditioning. And here's what most men don't realize until it's too late. When you keep swallowing your truth to avoid conflict, it doesn't just disappear. It turns into something else. It turns into resentment, bitterness, emotional exhaustion, distance. That's why you feel heavy. That's why simple conversations feel draining. That's why you can't shake the feeling that something is deeply wrong, even when you can't put your finger on exactly what it is. 'Cause you're living in a relationship where you're not allowed to be human. You're not allowed to have needs. You're not allowed to be vulnerable. You're just expected to perform, to provide, to endure, and to never complain about it. But here's the truth that will set you free. A woman who truly loves you doesn't punish you for being honest. She doesn't make you afraid to express what you need. She might not always have the answer. She might not always be able to give you everything you ask for, but she doesn't make you feel like your needs are a burden, because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is partnership, and partnership means both people's needs matter. So ask yourself, in this relationship, are you allowed to have needs, or are you just expected to meet hers? Because if it's the second one, you're not her partner, you're her assistant. And that brings us to the final sign, the one that's the hardest to face, but the most important to recognize. Sign 5. She broke your trust and nothing really changed. This is the sign that breaks good men. Not because it's the most painful, but because it forces you to face something you've been avoiding. I'm not talking about a single mistake. I'm not talking about a misunderstanding or a moment of weakness that was immediately owned and corrected. I'm talking about betrayal. Deep, intentional, repeated betrayal. Maybe she cheated. Maybe she lied about something significant. Maybe she violated your boundaries in a way that shattered the foundation of trust you thought you had. And when you found out, your world stopped. You couldn't eat, you couldn't sleep, you replayed every moment in your mind, trying to understand how someone who claimed to love you could do something like that. And if you're a good man, you did something that made it worse. You blamed yourself. You started asking, what did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Did I neglect her? Should I have been better? And yes, relationships are complex. Both people contribute to the health or dysfunction of a partnership. But here's the truth you need to hear. Even if the relationship was struggling, betrayal is still a choice. It's not a mistake. It's not confusion. It's not something that just happened. It's a decision someone made knowing it would hurt you. And when it becomes a pattern, when the behavior repeats, when the apologies keep coming, but the actions never change, it's no longer about the relationship. It's about character. Because here's what repeated betrayal tells you. This person either doesn't respect you or they don't fear losing you. And both are fatal to a relationship. A woman who respects you moves carefully with your heart. A woman who fears losing you protects what you have together. But a woman who repeatedly breaks your trust and watches you stay anyway learns something dangerous. His love has no limits, which means my behavior doesn't need boundaries. And that's why the cycle continues. She denies it, then she blames you or the circumstances, then she cries, then she promises it'll never happen again. Then just enough time passes for you to let your guard down, and then it happens again. And every time you accept it without real consequences, you teach her something. Loyalty isn't a requirement in this relationship, it's optional. But here's the part most men don't see. The real damage isn't even the betrayal itself. The real damage is what it turns you into afterward. You become suspicious. You start checking phones, reading into every word, questioning every late response. You lose your calm. You lose your confidence. You lose the version of yourself that used to trust easily. And that's the hidden cost of staying with someone who keeps breaking your trust. It doesn't just break the relationship, it breaks you. You're no longer a man in love. You're a man living in constant surveillance mode, constantly anxious, constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. And no man can build a future from a place of anxiety. So here's the question you have to answer honestly. Did the behavior actually stop, or did she just get better at hiding it? Because if you're still finding things, still catching inconsistencies, still feeling that gut instinct that something isn't right, then you already know the answer. And staying at that point isn't love. It's self-betrayal. It's choosing the familiar pain of staying over the unknown fear of leaving. But let me tell you something. The fear of leaving will last weeks, maybe months. The Kia regret of staying too long will last years. Before you make any decision, I want to be clear about something. These signs are powerful indicators, but they're not the only factors. Every relationship is unique. Every situation has context, and emotions run deep, which means you can't make a life-changing decision based purely on feelings in a moment. Take your time. Look at patterns, not isolated incidents. Ask yourself, is this a season or is this the relationship? Because everyone goes through hard times. Everyone has moments where they're not their best self. And if she's going through something difficult, if she's genuinely trying to grow and change, if you can see real effort and accountability, that's different. But if the pattern has been consistent for months or years, if nothing ever really changes despite all the promises, if you keep having the same conversations about the same issues with the same results, then you're not looking at a rough patch. You're looking at who she really is, and you have to decide if you can live with that. Not the version of her you're hoping she'll become, not the version she promises she'll be next time, but the version that's showing up right now in this moment repeatedly because hope is beautiful. But hope without evidence is just denial. So here's where we land. If you recognize yourself in these signs, if your chest felt heavy reading them, if you kept thinking, this is exactly what I've been going through, then you already know what you need to do. The question isn't whether you should let her go. The question is whether you love yourself enough to actually do it. Because letting go isn't about stopping love. It's about starting to respect yourself again. It's about choosing the man you want to become over the comfort of what's familiar. It's about understanding that sometimes the greatest act of love you can show yourself is walking away from someone who's teaching you that your value is negotiable. You deserve peace. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve someone who doesn't make you question your sanity for having basic needs. You deserve someone who protects your trust instead of repeatedly breaking it. And if she's not that person, no amount of time, effort, or love will change that. So take a breath, look at your situation clearly, and ask yourself the one question that matters most. If nothing changes, can I live like this for the next 5 years? If the answer is no, then you already know what you need to do. And I know it's scary, I know it hurts. I know walking away from someone you love feels like ripping your own heart out, but staying in something that's destroying you slowly is worse, because at least when you walk away whole, but if you stay too long in the wrong place, you lose pieces of yourself you might never get back. So choose yourself, choose your peace, choose your future, and trust that on the other side of this pain is a version of you that's stronger, wiser, and finally free. The decision is yours.